life is good. Alexander Volkanovski is not coming off of a loss. In fact, he's not even just coming off of a regular win. Volkanovski is the UFC champion in 2025, beating a dog like Diego Lopes. And still to this day, I have never gotten an Alexander Volkanovski pick wrong throughout the existence of this channel. All right, the last Volk fight that I got wrong was Volkanovski versus Max Holloway in their first fight, where most people picked Max. Ever since then, I've known what was going to happen in Volk's fights, dude. And I got this one right too, man. Volkanovski beats Diego Lopes, and he is the only fighter in the history of the sport to win a title in the lighter weight classes after the age of 35. He's doing it at 36, coming off of 2 KO losses, and he looked old. And I'm going to give my recap for every single fight on this card. I think Volk should retire. I think he should retire. Everybody's saying that, oh no, his next title defense is a brain damage, KO risk-free title defense against Movsar Evloev. And I'm going to get into why I think that Volkanovski should hang him up. I think that Movsar Evloev is being severely underrated, given that I don't think we saw Alexander Volkanovski in his prime last night. Let's just talk about the fight. We're going to get into how great of a win it was, and then I'll get into Volkanovski's future. Volkanovski rocks Diego Lopes in the first round, takes him down, beats him up, damn near 10-8s Diego Lopes in the first round. Right after that, I was like, all right, I think we're going to see a Volkanovski masterclass. I think we're going to see him finish Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes next round comes out looking like the usual slow poke Diego Lopes that we're used to seeing after round number 1. He's touching his neck. He's throwing out 1-2 and a 1-2. But Volkanovski starts getting a little bit overzealous. He starts going in head first, charging into the pocket. Every time Volkanovski exchanged with Diego Lopes in the pocket, dude, I was getting really nervous. When he was throwing like 3 pieces and Diego Lopes was just missing the last shot. Volkanovski's defense did look pretty good in this fight, I got to say. But then Lopes drops Volk in round number 2, and instead of going after Volk like a bat out of hell in round 3, he basically just chills for the first minute of the third round, sort of lets his energy revamp, and I think that is what allowed Volkanovski to get back into the fight. I really think Diego Lopes should have emptied the gas tank, really, in that third round, because it's not like, he had absolutely nothing in the tank, even in the 5th round, where he was pointing to the canvas, trying to have a grit down with Volk, and I was so happy that Volkanovski didn't entertain that. So happy that he didn't entertain that. People were like, dude, Volk's got a slug with him. What the hell, man? Fuck no. I'm okay with Volkanovski looking like a runner in the last minute of a fight, man. And I was saying on my live stream, dude, Volkanovski freaking menacingly walked him down. He menacingly walked him down, just because when Volk wins, you get to change history. You know what I mean? No, but I'm just kidding. But listen, I gave Volkanovski round 1. I gave him round 3. And I gave him round 5, maybe round 4. He kind of got clipped in round 4. The thing that I'm going to say is Volkanovski looked a little bit older, a little bit withered, right? I can't be the only one that's seen it. It's in his face. Just when you see Volkanovski pawing around looking for the parry and all that, his face is looking a little bit like that of the one that we saw when he was in front of Islam Makhachev right before he got head kicked. Even though he's lean and mean, even though he's in the best shape of his life, he looks older. Volk has the belt back. He is the champion of the world. We're in the best timeline possible. And let's just be honest about it. He really did just school Diego Lopes. Like, after the first round, Lopes really had nothing for Volk. And even in the first round, he really had nothing for Volk. The only success Lopes really had was in the last 30 seconds, where he was pointing down to the canvas and yelling at Volk, and Volkanovski would be a fucking idiot to try to exchange with him, okay? But at least for Lopes, Lopes is a tough guy, man. It looked real good for him, okay? And oh, man, respect to Lopes, okay? But outside of that moment, Lopes had the moment where he rocks Volkanovski, and the 4th round where he clips Volkanovski with a punch. And this is the thing that I'm going to get to. That punch that clips Volkanovski in the 4th round, I don't think that hurts Volkanovski in 2022. All right? I don't think that hurts Volkanovski in 2023. I know Diego Lopes has power. He carries it late. But his chin, it wasn't just those 2 shots in the fight. There were like 5, 6, maybe 7 punches in this fight where we got a little bit of a jitterbug from Volk. But outside of those very few moments, Volkanovski really just pieced Diego Lopes up and was like landing 6 strikes for every single one of Diego Lopes's 1 whiff that he wasn't landing. So this was a dominant striking masterclass from Volk. I'm not going to say masterclass because he got dropped a few times. One time, got hurt another time. But I'll say like he pretty handily proved that he was way better than Diego Lopes as a fighter. Like way better. Okay? And he had to stand with him. Again, credit to Diego Lopes's takedown defense. I mean, it really held up because Volkanovski shot a bunch of takedowns, maybe like 10 takedowns, and couldn't get more than maybe 1 or 2. And after the first round, couldn't really keep Diego Lopes down. I was really excited to see the grappling exchanges. I wanted to see it, but I mean, we didn't really get to see a lot after that first round, unfortunately. But that just goes to show that Diego was prepared for this. But let's just talk about how Volk looked. He didn't look to be as light on his feet. He didn't look to be as, floating around as he usually does. And what I mean by that, there are so many moments in this fight where he's just sitting in front of Diego Lopes and he's popping the jab and he's sitting there and he's sort of waiting and he's throwing a kick and he's sort of waiting. We didn't see that super light on his feet Volkanovski that's constantly moving. And look at the takedown attempts. We didn't see Volkanovski with that same ridiculous strength for the featherweight division. And yeah, I know Lopes is big for featherweight. He's strong for featherweight. But I saw a skinnier, thinner Volkanovski, and we know that he came in extremely lean for this fight. As Volkanovski likes to say, he came in lean and mean. But it wasn't just that he was leaner. He looked a little bit withered, right? Maybe he had too much of a weight cut, or not too much of a weight cut, but came in a little bit too small. Either way, he was not in his prime. If this was 2022 Volkanovski, he puts Diego Lopes away in the 3rd round. Like, it's clear to me, and I know this is not a hot take for most people because we know he's 36 coming off of 2 KO losses, but I think this is the first time we've ever seen Volk skip a beat, I really do think it's the first time we've seen him look a little bit old. In the Topuria fight, people were saying Volk's just old, Volk's just old. No, Volk looked really fast in that fight. His kicks were lightning fast in that fight. He was moving around a lot in that fight. He did not look old in that fight at all. This one he did. And this is ultimately why I don't want Volkanovski to continue to fight. Because if he loses to a guy like Movsar Evloev, okay, it will be a out of his prime, obviously older, still has it, but obviously older Volkanovski, okay? And, I mean, Movsar has a chance to knock him out. This is the one thing that I think people are just sleeping on because there's this narrative that Movsar has no power, and I understand that he has no finishes and no knockouts, but the guy has thud. Are we about to sit here and say Justin Gaethje has no power just because he didn't finish Rafael Fiziev? I mean, I know some people are going to start going bonkers and whoa, man, comparing Gaethje to Movsar Evloev. But what I mean by that is Movsar has rocked people. He has heavy hands. In the Arnold Allen fight, I believe Allen hurt Movsar in the 3rd round, but the biggest moment on the feet in that fight was Movsar rocking Arnold Allen. And Arnold Allen's pretty tough. And Movsar Evloev, the biggest moment on the feet in his fight with Aljo, he lands like a big clobbering right hand over the top of Aljo right before one of their grappling exchanges. He has some thud. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone if you just look at the guy. He's built for the division. He looks like he's sauced to the gills. I'm not saying he is, but he's huge for the division. He's extremely dense. He's like a Paulo Costa. He has the ability to crack you. And, of course, with the threat of the takedown, I mean, he's going to be shooting on Volk. He's got confidence in his wrestling, and so mixing up the takedown could lead to more success on the feet, he could land a big one over the top on Volk, who clearly in this fight, again, I saw him do the jitterbug 7 times. It looked like he wasn't reacting the way that we normally see him react to getting hit. And it's not just, I don't want to get hit by that one. No, it was a physiological reaction that we were seeing from Volk. His chin is just barely holding up. And, okay, if he beats Movsar Evloev, like, does that put him above Makhachev, who I think is the second greatest fighter of all time? Does that put him above Jones? It would be great, but I think in order for Volk to really leapfrog a guy like Makhachev, who he already beat on the GOAT list, he's going to have to win a few more times. And then he's going to be like 38. Oh, he just got past Movsar. He got dropped 5 times in the Movsar fight, and Volk still somehow won. And now he's headed into a fight with Gene Silva. I don't want to see that. Number one, I don't think it's necessary for his legacy, because at this point, a Movsar win is not much better than a Lopez win. You know, people were saying Lopez doesn't deserve this fight. Lopez took everything the UFC gave to him, all the opportunities, and we're talking ranked fighters. He beat Dan Ige, okay, on short notice. He knocked out Sadiq Youssef with ease. And he was able to sort of piece up Brian Ortega and drop him a few times. I know Ortega's not that good, but Ortega's coming off of a win over Yair, who people are talking about giving a title shot to Yair right now. Lopez just beat the guy that beat him. I mean, he clearly was the number one contender. It was him and Movsar. If he didn't go with Movsar, Diego Lopez was the guy. This is a good title win. It's as good of a win as it would be for anyone else that beats Diego Lopez. It's a legitimate win. People were just talking about 6 months ago how Diego Lopez versus Ilia Topuria is the fight to make in Spain. It's a good win. Beating Movsar is, it's as good as a Diego Lopez win, you know? But is it worth it to stick around? I know Volk wants to do more. And listen, if it's, for money, of course, he's going to want another fight. He's going to want another payday. He's going to want the win money. He's going to want the show money. But for his legacy, I don't think another win is the kind of thing that would really put Volkanovski over the next guy above him, because he just passed GSP, clearly. GSP came back to fight Michael Bisping. Volkanovski came back to fight Diego Lopez. All right? There's a little bit of a difference there. One guy's in their prime with actual power to knock you out and has a submission game. The other guy was a tubby, pillow-handed, no jiu-jitsu, cardio guy. Michael Bisping was a cardio kickboxer, basically. And, we already know Volk has the wins over Yair. That aged well last night. I was a little bit worried Pitbull was about to get one over on Yair, man. But, Volkanovski's resume just aging real good right now. And, I don't want Volk to get KO'd by a guy that would have never have been able to knock him out in his prime, is what I'm saying. I don't want Volkanovski, who just proved that even out of his prime, he can beat the dangerous number one contenders in his division. Even out of his prime, where he's finally starting to look a little old. He could still hang with these guys, for sure. But him losing to Movsar is probably going to be a chin thing. And people are they're incapable of understanding that, because Movsar doesn't KO people. Movsar has thud. He's explosive. Just look at the guy. He's capable of hurting someone with power. All right? There's some guys that are built like Aljo who don't carry a lot of power. Movsar has the short arm punches, but they've got thud, man. And I think Volk could beat him. But for the first time, we saw a slightly weaker, more withered, less light on his feet, chinny Volk. He wasn't chinny in the Ilia fight. He got knocked out because he got hit with the perfect punch. He looked a little chinny last night. I'm not going to say in the second round, because Lopez still has power, but the fourth round, jitterbugs all over the place. Is it necessary? I've seen some people saying, let him fight Evloev and then rack up a couple more title defenses. He has no reason to leave. Yeah. Let him fight Evloev and then rack up another couple title defenses against Gene Silva with brick wall takedown defense and absolutely bonkers power and good shot selection. And after that, let's just throw him Yair. Let's just do a rematch in Guadalajara, Mexico, right? That's what the UFC would like to do. Volkanovski versus the guy that's going to question mark kick him in the first round in the first 2 seconds in Guadalajara, Mexico. Yeah, Volkanovski in Guadalajara, Mexico. Yeah. And then right after that, we're going to do 2 months later, we're going to do Volkanovski versus Movsar coming off of 35 knockdowns. And then it's going to be Volk versus Gene Silva in Brazil. Volkanovski's going to be wheeling out. He's going to be wheeling out, dude, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, after 50 knockdowns at the hands of Movsar Evloev. Like, I don't want to see it, dude. He's taken a lot of damage. This is the fucking perfect storybook ending. He can ride off into the sunset. He's the only guy in history to be able to win a title after the age of 35 in the lighter weight classes. He said it himself. People were going to write movies about this. And I was nervous. We were all nervous. You had a good reason to pick Diego Lopes. If you picked him, you had a good reason to. I'm going to be honest. For most of the week, I was like, if this goes to a decision, Volk is winning. And I know he's good enough to be able to do that. But it just seems like it's going to be a reality check, and it would be, life would be too good to assume that Volk is not going to get KO'd at the age of 36, man. You could just see it, man. It just seemed like, I think Volk wins, but he's probably going to get KO'd. And listen, I was picking Volk, but I was saying if Volkanovski is forced to stand with Diego Lopes, he is probably going to get KO'd. And to be honest, he wasn't forced to stand because we did some grappling in the first round, but you get my point. He's even proved me wrong a little bit. This is the time where he can ride off into the sunset. Even when Volkanovski was about to walk out, I said this on the stream. I was saying, they were playing like this old Western music, ain't on country goes, something like that, some like Disney Western music or whatever. They were sort of making Volk out to seem like Mater in Cars. Not Mater, who's the old guy with the mustache? Was it, I forget the guy's name in Cars, the OG in Cars. I was saying the OG in Cars. There was Lightning McQueen, there was Mater, and then there was the sheriff or something. I forget his name. Someone will remind me of his name in the comments. But like, you almost got a feeling like Volkanovski was this old, withered down, washed up car back in the day that used to smoke people, and now he's coming out for a KO loss. Like, I just kind of felt bad for him during the promo right before he walked out. And he proved us wrong. Like, he proved me right because I picked him to win. And I'll say this again. I've never gotten a Volkanovski fight wrong. Which is why you guys need to listen to me on this. All right? I got the Lopes pick right. I got the Makhachev fights right. Even though I did say Makhachev was going to dominate the first fight, even though it was a close fight. I got the Topuria fight right. I said second round KO. Topuria knocked him out in the second round, okay? I got the Holloway trilogy right. I said 50-45. He got the 50-45. The rematch, I said Volk's going to win. The TKZ fight. The Ortega fight. The Yair fight. That's a lot of fights. That just goes to show Volk is goated, by the way. But I've been getting all of these right. I'm nervous for the Evloev fight. Not because I think Evloev is some different level of fighter that Volk can't beat. He can beat him. It's because the chances to beat Volk these days have increased a lot just because his chin is withering. Okay? And Volk can show layers. But, I mean, listen, I want Volk to stick around. It'd be great to see another fight. Man, if he gets another win, like, that's just insane. But the point that I'm going to make is that it doesn't actually bump him up higher on the GOAT list. I think a win like this over a prime, real contender Diego Lopes, who people are going to say is a fraud, but again, that just goes to show Volkanovski's really fucking good. Diego Lopes has not had an issue throughout his career when it comes to hitting people. All of a sudden, Volkanovski's in front of him, and you can't fucking touch him. Outside of a couple of moments. Against Ige, he had no issue. Against Ortega, he had no issue. And Ige has pretty good defense. Against all of these guys, even Evloev, he's had no issue. Volk's another level. You will see it. Diego Lopes, man. Diego Lopes will continue to win fights. All right, he will. I don't think he's the best out of all the contenders. I think that Gene Silva is at this point, but I don't want Volkanovski. I don't think it's worth it going in there trying to get a win over Movsar, which won't really do that much for Volk's legacy. And again, people can say, dude, what are you talking about? It won't do anything. It's a good title fight. He's already proven it all, man. It's wishful thinking to think that Volk can become the GOAT of the sport when he's lost to Makhachev twice, who's still active. Okay? When Ilia Topuria could beat the guy that Volkanovski lost to twice. All right? It's wishful thinking. All right? That means Volk's going to have to get like 3 more wins. He's already past GSP. He can ride off into the sunset. He said he wanted to prove to his family and his girls that you can come back from adversity. He did just that. This was a perfect ending. He got the title back. He broke records. He broke the Drake curse. Yes, he could beat Evloev, but he's not in his prime. This is not 2022 Volk going in there versus Evloev where he would fucking school Evloev. This is a guy shooting takedowns with ridiculous cardio who's going to be throwing overhands over the top. And Volk is looking older now. Okay? I just don't think I need to see it. I want to see this guy retire on top. All right? He's a top 5 fighter of all time. At this point, everybody knows it. I've been saying it. If he had lost, I think that would have booted him out of the top 5 maybe, but no, he won. It actually bumps him over GSP because Volk and GSP were very close. I'll do another GOAT list. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Again, people are going to say, dude, stop worrying about the Movsar fight. But again, Movsar, the problem with him is that the ridiculous cardio, the constant takedowns, that's like the perfect style to be able to set up a thudding overhand. And that wouldn't have been a problem for Volk back in the day, but it seems like that could be an issue for him now. So, yeah, I think Volk should retire on top. I think he should. I think he proved last night that if him and Evloev were to fight in his prime, like he'd fucking destroy Evloev. But he's not in his prime anymore. He's clearly out of his prime. He's looking older. He's looking like he's missed a beat. So I know he's going to fight Evloev. I know that he's open to the Yair Rodriguez fight, which is just ridiculous. Like, we're going to give Yair Rodriguez a title fight off of beating an old Bellator fighter? That would be insane. It's clearly Movsar Evloev who deserves it next. But yeah, great win for Alexander Volkanovski. I'm extremely happy that he was able to get this one. We're in a good timeline. People were saying, like, Diego Lopes winning would be better for the sport. Diego Lopes is a really exciting fighter. He is, 100%. But I'm sorry, man, he's a bit of a Walmart Oliveira. Like, he just doesn't have the craziest... I guess Oliveira just has a really good story as well. A great backstory that inspires people. And Diego Lopes is definitely inspiring too, for sure. But I'm sorry, man. Diego Lopes versus Yair is not that big of a fight. And Diego Lopes versus Evloev is not a bigger fight than Volk versus Evloev. And for people saying things like, man, now we got to see old man Volk versus Evloev, like, that's a great fight. That's actually a better stylistic matchup. You want to see Evloev who gasses out after 1 round versus Evloev? He probably loses that fight. That's one of the worst matchups for him. Volkanovski has a great gas tank with great wrestling. Like, that is a competitive fight with Evloev. And Volkanovski's going to be active, and he's already a bigger name than Diego Lopes. I don't understand this all of a sudden. I think, you know what it was, is that people were losing a lot of money on their parlays. I think that's a part of it because a lot of people probably had Lopes in their parlay, and it's natural that when you lose a lot of money, you're really pissed off, okay? I think that's why people were sort of upset about Volk winning to some degree. There were some people like that, probably because they had a parlay with Lopes in it. And also, again, like, I understand Lopes is entertaining and he's the new wave, but we don't have a shortage of up-and-coming talent at featherweight that's entertaining. We have a lot of entertaining featherweights on the rise. All right. And Volkanovski is an entertaining fighter. He's always been an entertaining fighter. He's going to be more competitive with someone like Movsar Evloev. He has a great gas tank. He's going to be active, and he has a bigger name than Lopes. This idea that, no, we missed out on the Diego Lopes versus Yair Guadalajara, man. We need Diego Lopes to represent Mexico, man, even though he's from Brazil. But am I missing something? Is Diego Lopes like the biggest star in the sport? Am I missing something? I know he has potential to be a big star. I get it. I understand it. He's going to be around for a lot longer. On the other hand, we get greatness. We get somebody coming off of 2 KO losses and breaking history by being the only person to ever win a belt after the age of 35, who was already one of the GOATs, that with a loss would have slipped out of the top 5, with a win passes GSP. I actually would much rather Volkanovski cement his great legacy and, maybe have a good fight with Evloev where he has a better chance to beat him, where we can just see Volk like totally back and everyone loves Volk. Then Diego Lopes, just get a fucking big moment for Lopez, and now he's in the 3rd round with Movsar Evloev and he's gassing out. I don't know, man. I don't see why people think like this was like a loss for the UFC as far as promotion goes. Volk is a much bigger name. All right, Lopez, he has potential, but he just doesn't have the Charles Oliveira potential. He's as I said, it's a little bit of like a Walmart Oliveira situation going on. Okay, let's get on to the next one. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. Dude, I'm never gonna pick Paddy Pimblett to win a fight, but he is continuing to prove me wrong. Okay. He just doesn't look good in fights. I know his grappling is great, and he did dominate Michael Chandler. But as I said going into this, if you keep putting Paddy Pimblett against these old heads like Michael Chandler, there are always going to be questions. And it just looks like the UFC has been trying to set up the easiest title shot in the fucking history of the lightweight division, because they're probably going to book him versus old man Justin Gaethje. Paddy is proving me wrong. Let me get this out of the way. He's proving me wrong. Whatever he's doing on the feet, it's working. His jab looked good, even though it looked super awkward. His kicks are always great. His boxing defense still looked kind of shitty, but again, you look at Michael Chandler and the way that he fought. Chandler fought like patient Chandler again, and what do you know? He doesn't have any success on the feet. Chandler is not a fighter that can afford to just be patient and pick his shots. I think we've learned that at this point. Back in the day, there was this idea that if Chandler just stays patient and picks his shots, he's so good, he's so skilled, he's so athletic and so powerful that he'll actually be able to compete with people. But it turns out that Chandler, when he's going ogre mode, caveman mode, is actually the one that has success. But he did zero of that against Paddy Pimblett on the feet. First round, Michael Chandler, full of energy, goes for a takedown against the really good grappler Paddy Pimblett. Looking to stall out the first round with grappling. Just the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my fucking life. Michael Chandler, yeah, it's a really good idea against this guy that everyone says is terrible on the feet, no boxing defense, can't strike, but he's actually really good on the ground. It's a really good idea to just take him down and not even try to finish him, but just kind of hold him down and expend a lot of energy doing that, where Paddy feels comfortable. And you're basically, again, getting all this lactic acid buildup. A terrible game plan for Chandler, but then patient Mike, even in the moments where he had Paddy up against the fence, not really throwing. Where was the fucking 4-piece, slugging moments from Mike? We didn't see it. And so Paddy Pimblett just starts picking him apart. And again, Pimblett's better than I've been saying. He definitely looked better in this fight than he has in the past, for sure. His jab looked pretty good. And he's awkward to fight, for sure. And hey, you know what? He did beat the crap out of Michael Chandler, and he finished Chandler, whereas Oliveira couldn't. So that actually is really good. The fact that Pimblett was able to finish Michael Chandler on the ground and Oliveira could not do that, that just goes to show that Paddy's legit on the ground, extremely good on the ground. He could be competitive with almost anyone on the ground. But again, the problem that I have with this, even though it's clear that Pimblett is proving me wrong, okay, and he has a little bit of that Dricus Duplessis effect where when Dricus was on the come up, I was just so sure that Whitaker was going to destroy him, okay? And then he obviously beat Whitaker. It just seemed like, how is this sloppy striker ever going to beat a guy like Robert Whitaker with brick wall takedown defense? And he just does it. He makes it happen. Paddy Pimblett has a similar style insofar as it doesn't look that clean. He doesn't really do everything right on the feet, but it's just awkward and it works. But it's still against these old geezers, man. And I picked Michael Chandler because I expected him to go out there and fucking slug. And he didn't. He didn't go out there and slug. He went out there and tried to smudge Paddy into the canvas in the first round and then played it patient. And then he would get hit and then he would nod to Paddy. And where was the Michael Chandler trying to entertain people, bro? That's the one that I was relying on to show up. And if you're not going to fight like that, then you know what? Credit to Paddy, because Paddy was actually able to make it work on the feet. Where I said in my prediction, I said Oliveira When he has patient Michael Chandler in front of him, he can pick his shots and have good shot selection and walk you down with good defense, and he's dangerous. Paddy wasn't as dangerous as Oliveira on the feet, but his striking looked good. His pressure looked good. But you know they're setting him up for a Justin Gaethje fight. And if he wins that, which he will if he gets Gaethje on the ground, there's going to be this narrative that he's undeniable now. The king in the north. I was cringing so hard when Jon Anik said that, dude. The king in the north. It's not the fact that Anik says that. It's not the nickname. I get he's from the UK. I get it. It's the way Jon Anik said it. Like he was so shocked that Paddy Pimblett beat patient Michael Chandler, who's 38. The king in the north. He sounded like he had just seen a ghost, you know, or he had sounded like he just won the lottery. It's old man Michael Chandler. And it's not even, it's a good win. It's a good win. I could just picture Paddy going to the camera and saying, what now? What? Because he did prove us wrong, right? Paddy will be the guy that gets the easiest path to the title in UFC history is all I'm saying. And it's kind of annoying. I like Paddy Pimblett, but the fact that they're giving him old head after old head after old head, all right? You know that if that's Renato Moicano, it's a tougher fight. Everybody else has to get through Moicano. They got to get through Bahamondes, Rafael Fiziev, all right, Dustin Poirier. Paddy Pimblett's going to have to get through Bobby Old Man Green, Tony Old Man Ferguson, and Michael Patient Old Man Chandler. They're giving him that's the only thing that annoys me. I like Pimblett. I like his style. He's definitely good. His grappling is great. But he's not going to be tested. Not once. Not once is he going to be tested. And people are going to say, well, why do you have a problem with that? He's entertaining. Just enjoy the entertainment. Because it's just too obvious. They're pushing him too hard. It's too obvious. It's like giving O'Malley a fucking number one contenders fight off of beating freaking Almeida, dude. Raulian Paiva. We don't know how he stacks up against the real killers at lightweight. Renato Moicano. All right? Who else are we talking? Dan Hooker. Mateusz Gamrot. They'll never give him a fucking Gamrot fight. Ever, dude. They would never give him a Gamrot fight. Why? Because it would actually be competitive. That's the problem. And again, this sounds stupid because I was picking Chandler. And coming from a guy who picked Chandler, and you could say, dude, why are you shifting the goalposts? It's not that. I said Pimblett could win. I said he could get it done if he gets Michael Chandler on the ground, and he did, and he finished him, which was great. And he did a better job on the ground than Oliveira, which was really impressive. Again, I'm trying to have a nuanced take. Pimblett looked good. His striking looked improved. He looked confident in there. He's definitely reached his peak. He's a good fighter. I'm not saying he can't beat people like Moicano, and he can't beat people like Gamrot, and he can't beat people like Arman Tsarukyan. I'm not even saying give him Arman Tsarukyan because, you know, Arman should fight for a belt. I don't want to see either of those guys cancel each other out. I'm just saying, if you're looking at Pimblett's schedule to getting the fucking title, you go from like 40-year-old Bobby Green, 40-year-old Tony Ferguson, 40-year-old Michael Chandler, 40-year-old Justin Gaethje who can't grapple for fucking shit. It's just a little annoying is all. You could see what I'm saying. Is it not? Is it not? And this is the problem. If you have a fighter like this, there are always going to be a huge portion of the fan base that just because of that alone, you can just smell that they're trying to sneak this guy in. They're trying to AstroTurf this guy's title rise. That they can smell that it's not authentic, and people don't like that. I don't want to see Paddy Pimblett fight Islam Makhachev for a title after beating these old heads. I want to see him actually fight somebody that's in their fucking prime. You just know that if he beats Justin Gaethje, he's getting a title shot. And that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's not going to happen over Arman or over Ilia Topuria. I'm not worried that he's going to jump the line. It's just I want to see this guy fight at least somebody in their prime. Somebody, dude. Okay? And not Benoit Saint Denis. I don't want to see it. Let's not do the Benoit Saint Denis one because that's just pointless and he obviously wins. And you might be saying, well, why do so it's only the fights that he obviously wins that you don't want to see him win. No, I want to see him earn a number one contenders fight. I mean, I want to see him earn the championship fight with a good number one contenders fight against somebody that's legit. And if you're sitting here saying that, no, we can't do Arman, why? Because Arman's in his prime and he's actually wickedly good. All of it. No. Why on earth would you want to put Pimblett against somebody that's clearly a boogeyman? Because that's what the number one contenders fight should be at lightweight. If you want to give him Justin Gaethje, give him Justin Gaethje, but then don't give him a title shot after. Like, I want to see Pimblett as a star. I want to see him do well. And he did prove a lot of people wrong, 100%. But it's old fighter after old fighter. Put him in there with a well-rounded, in their prime lightweight. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. And I'm like, after what he's been showing me, I could consider picking Pimblett, depending on what the stylistic matchup is. I don't mind picking Pimblett to beat a Gamrot. I don't mind picking him in that fight. Would I pick him to beat Arman? No, I wouldn't. But it's a good competitive fight, and that's the type of thing you need. I can't be the only one thinking this. I can't be the only one. You know, for a while they were giving Paddy the slow rise and all that, and then he has that tough fight with Jared Gordon and he rebounds against Tony Ferguson. But like, dude, a couple fights ago it was Tony and old man Bobby Green. Now we're talking about Justin Gaethje and a title shot. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't want this to be the case where, Arman has to work his way through killer's row. He has to get past old man Dariush, to be fair, but honestly, Dariush was only coming off a 1 KO loss. But Arman has to get past a lot of fighters. Joel Alvarez he has to beat. He has to beat Charles Oliveira. And he might have to fight one more time because he missed weight and he pulled out. I wouldn't mind Pimblett versus Oliveira. If that's what it is, fine. Pimblett versus Oliveira is totally fine with me. Just don't do the Gaethje matchup. Let's just not do that. You know the UFC could make that, though, because Gaethje's a big name. Paddy's a big name. Paddy gets a ton of views. They were putting him on the cover of every Embedded episode, and he was getting a lot of views. I think his Octagon interview has basically the same amount of views as Volk. He's clearly a big name, for sure. And he has star potential. And him against Justin Gaethje is perfect because he probably wins that fight, and it's another big name, which does wonders for him. The way that the UFC is pushing Pimblett is actually really smart, just in terms of business. It is. But as a fan of the sport, and I'm not a guy that's total 100% merit-based at all times. Like, I'm willing to do the Topuria fight over the Arman fight because Topuria, even though he may have not earned it as much as Arman at lightweight, he's a defending champion. He's clearly amazing. He's undefeated, and that's one of the best fights we could ever make. It's amazing. The fans are going to love it. It's hype. You may as well make it, okay? But I just wouldn't be that excited for Pimblett versus Gaethje. Gaethje looked okay against Fiziev. He still has it, but again, he's looking older. He's not in his prime anymore. And he's probably going to get submitted in the first round against Paddy Pimblett. I was saying a while ago Pimblett would submit McGregor in the first round. I remember saying that like a year ago, and people were like, no, not Pimblett. But yeah, Pimblett's legit. He would definitely finish Justin Gaethje in the first round. But if he's ever going to get a title fight, it needs to be against a well-rounded lightweight that's not out of their prime. That's it. That's all I'm saying. He did call out Oliveira. I love that fight. I know Oliveira's not going to want that fight because he thinks he only deserves a title shot, and he's coming off a win over Michael Chandler too. Him getting a title shot is ridiculous as well. I don't want to see that. Oliveira should be fighting Ilia Topuria, okay? And if he doesn't fight Ilia, they make the Ilia versus Makhachev fight, then let's do Oliveira versus Pimblett. And you can tell Oliveira, listen, if you beat Pimblett, which Oliveira probably thinks he could win that fight, you will get the next title shot 100%, okay? Just make it clear to him and he'll take the fight. I'd rather see that. Pimblett versus Oliveira, that's the perfect matchup. Or Pimblett versus someone that's well-rounded. It's either Arman or it's Oliveira. It's crazy when you say Arman, people just assume, oh, you're trying to get Pimblett killed now. You just don't like him. Which just goes to show that you think that he would lose to Arman. But that's the fucking point that I'm trying to make is, When it comes to earning a title shot, you have to be in there with a fucking killer at lightweight. You can't be in a number one contenders fight with Justin Gaethje, who can't defend submissions. It has to be against someone good. Pimblett's good. He's legit. He's in his prime. We don't have to do this whole ducking bullshit anymore. We don't have to do this whole protecting him thing anymore. For business, it's good that the UFC does that. I get it. But I want to see Pimblett actually fight someone that's legit, bro. Listen, I got to stop ranting about this, man. He did really well. He fucked up Michael Chandler. He absolutely destroyed Michael Chandler on the ground. And his striking is good. And his chin is good. He did get hit with a big shot. Pimblett is onto something when he says Scousers don't get knocked out. He is onto something for sure. But yeah, this was an interesting fight. I'm glad he got the win. Yair versus Patricio Pitbull. Dude, I got this one right. I said Patricio Pitbull is too low output. His style is the ole, 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 ole. His style is the Bellator Dublin 5-round chess match stinkfest 5 strikes per round style, where he stands like this, ole, ole, ole. He stands like this, like Darren Till at featherweight, and all of a sudden he's the GOAT because he's fighting cans. I know he's knocked out Michael Chandler. He's a beast. Patricio Pitbull's a beast. But come on, you have to pick Yair. Patricio Pitbull's old. He's not in his prime. And he's been losing to people in Risen, bro. Okay? He's been losing to freaking Kaya Sukuras. All right? I'm just playing around, but you get my point, dude. Patricio Pitbull's... He's not even losing to Kaya Sakura. He's losing to people that are worse than Kaya Sakura, but... I'm going to be honest. I wasn't that overly impressed with Yair Rodriguez. Overly impressed. I wasn't impressed with Yair Rodriguez's performance. And I know Yair's in there rocking the Tony Montana suit, and he's calm now. Yair's calm now. You always knew Yair had a bit of a mean streak to him. You saw him at the press conference, flips the switch, goes 0 to 100 really quick. But he's sort of back in the Little Lord Fauntleroy mode where he's like, wearing the suit in the post-fight press conference. I just beat this old man throwing 3 kicks per round. I believe I deserve a title shot, right? No. We don't need that. I like Yair. Volkanovski's resume is aging better. I'm a fan of Yair's style. You guys know this. His style is really entertaining. I wanted him to win this fight because I wanted him to hold it down for the UFC. It would have been a really bad look if Patricio Old Man Pitbull went in there and beat like one of the GOATs, prime Volkanovski's title defenses. That would have been a bad look. So I'm happy that Yair won. But I don't know. Like, he did fight smart. He made it clear that he was trying not to like go forward because he said that Pitbull was trying to bait him in. Pitbull wanted to counter him. And so Yair was playing it safe. He definitely wanted to take a lower output approach, and I understand it, but I don't know. Like, we were 3 minutes into this fight, and it seemed like Yair had not even thrown a single strike. And he definitely outlanded Pitbull because Pitbull hardly landed anything. Pitbull landed a couple of solid punches for sure. And Yair's chin is pretty good. And I know that Yair rocked Pitbull. It doesn't even seem like he finished him, right? Because the stoppage was an early stoppage. But he rocked Pitbull, dropped him in the 3rd round, teed off on him. It looked kind of similar to the Drew Dober, Manuel Torres finish in a way. Or maybe not. I don't know. It's so hard to remember the finish because it was anticlimactic because it didn't really seem like it needed to be one. But Yair, I think he may have finished him in the guard. He was just punching him, elbowing him. To be honest, there were some nasty 12-6 elbows, some nasty ground and pound strikes. Yair is always very vicious with his ground game. He did well in the 3rd round, but a little low output. I expected to see more body kicks. I expected to see more punches. But then again, you got to be careful with a guy like Pitbull who does have the Bellator UFC debut plot armor. You know, he definitely has that, and he has that ridiculous power, so you do have to be careful. I mean, again, Patricio swung Yair's head back with a couple of those punches. But Yair did what he needed to do. He held it down for the UFC. I'm happy that he won. It sucks for Pitbull. I guess we can give Pitbull an easier fight. I don't know who he would fight. Maybe Pitbull versus Ige could be fun, right? Or Pitbull versus the Martian. You could put him in there with Sean Woodson. But yeah, Yair, let's just pump the brakes when it comes to title fights. People are like, Yair versus Volk. Fuck no. I don't care if the UFC is going to Guadalajara, Mexico. I just like saying Guadalajara, Mexico. Because when I say Guadalajara, it just makes me think of undeserved title fights and Diego Lopes versus Yair. And those are the two things I think. Undeserved title fights, O'Malley getting his rematch, and I know he's not fighting Merab in Guadalajara. They're fighting in a couple months in New Jersey, but he fought Merab on the Noche card. So I think of undeserved title shots and Yair versus Lopes. That's all I can think about. So just give Yair Rodriguez a fight with Diego Lopes, but it doesn't have to be for the title, all right? If somebody fights for the title, it should be Mavzar. And if Volk retires, then it should be Mavzar versus Silva. Dude, just let Silva fucking jump the line. Let's just get on to this Gene Silva fight. This was an absolute destruction, demolition job, man. I was actually kind of impressed with the fact that Bryce Mitchell was in there on the feet, doing his thing, landing some good kicks, landing some good stomps to the knee. But as soon as it became clear that he couldn't get the takedown, you just knew that he was a sitting duck. As soon as Gene Silva had stuffed like 4 takedowns and started barking at Bryce Mitchell, you just knew that this was over, you know? And Bryce Mitchell has good wrestling. And he got into those positions where he's usually very strong in the clinch up against the fence. And Gene Silva is literally a brick wall. And when this fight was first announced, I was saying Gene Silva has brick wall takedown defense. And I was basing it off of the Drew Dober fight where he was shucking off Drew Dober. But then as we got closer to this fight and Bryce started making me believe in his spirit, right? He was firing me up. And, you know, Gene Silva, I watched his fight back with Charles Jourdain, and Jourdain got those easy takedowns. I was thinking, man, you know, Drew Dober's a lightweight. He doesn't really have good wrestling. He doesn't have the quick entries like a Bryce Mitchell. And I think Bryce Mitchell's good enough on the feet to be able to set up the takedowns. And it was true. Bryce Mitchell was good enough on the feet to be able to set up the takedowns. But Gene Silva's takedown defense is just ridiculous. And Bryce Mitchell will never win a fight against a guy with brick wall takedown defense who strikes like Gene Silva. And the fact that Gene Silva submitted Bryce Mitchell makes it even more crazy. I mean, we've seen Bryce get submitted by Topuria. That was crazy. But he was rocked. Bryce wasn't even rocked in this fight. He got dropped once. I think it was at the end of the first round. Maybe the start of the second. But he wasn't even rocked when he got submitted and Gene Silva submits him. So not only does Gene Silva drop Bryce Mitchell, but he stuffed damn near every single takedown as easily as you possibly could against, again, a sticky grappler, right? I was saying he sort of reminded me of Yoel with the way that he was speaking, but he's also the leaner man, sticky grappling, right? Sticky grappling instead of the shorter man, Diddy boxing. Against a sticky grappler like Bryce Mitchell, who's really strong in those clinch positions with great trips, good judo, ridiculous jiu-jitsu, Gene Silva was still able to just shuck him off easily. And I don't think Bryce was sick this time. I think Bryce did everything he could, and Gene Silva still was able to submit him. It's just insane. And I think this just proves it, because Bryce Mitchell is like a top 4 grappler in that division. I think Evloev's up there, Volk is up there, Aljo's up there, but then there's Bryce. Bryce is right in the mix. For Gene Silva to get past this test, where Bryce did shoot takedowns, it wasn't like Gene Silva just cracked him before Bryce could even shoot, although I was getting nervous because there was like a 3-minute period where Bryce was landing those little flimsy teep kicks and he didn't shoot a takedown and Gene Silva was feinting the knee, and I was like, no, don't tell me Bryce is going to get KO'd before he even shoots a takedown, dude. Please shoot a takedown. Please. But Gene Silva passed the test. This is a future champ. Like, I think Gene Silva just proved that he's a future champ with this fight. I said before this, when it first got announced, I'm not going to pick against Gene Silva till he fights someone like Aljo, right? Like Evloev. If Bryce Mitchell is deep on a single leg, or Bryce Mitchell is deep on a body lock and he can't take you down, and if he gets you down, you pop right back up, I'm not picking Aljo to beat you. I know Aljo is a better grappler than Mitchell. He's a stronger grappler than Mitchell. I get it. He's got the lighter man skill, but he's not so much better to the point to where I'm looking at this performance from Gene Silva and picking Aljo again, or still. I think Gene Silva 100% is going to fight for a belt. Every single time we see the Fighting Nerds fight, they just get more and more impressive. Like, these guys are built different. And I'm probably going to pick Carlos Prates to beat Ian Gary, bro. Gary is good, but he's been looking flabby. He's been looking flimsy. Diego Lopes has a chance against Gene Silva, but then again, man, listen, I know that Gene Silva is not Volkanovski when it comes to stinging and floating and stinging and floating and stinging, but Diego Lopes, outside of a reactionary flurry, really isn't going to have anything for Gene Silva, who's a slickster on the feet, who's got really good head movement. He's in the matrix. Gene Silva is literally like Anderson Silva, but short and stocky with ridiculous power. He's like an awkward build, brick wall takedown defense, Anderson Silva sniper level of fighter. He's going to be a champ. Nobody beats him. I'm not going to pick against Gene Silva. Nobody beats this guy. And I know people are going to be saying, oh, why? Because he beat a guy that's one-dimensional. Yeah, because he beat a guy that's an amazing grappler in Bryce Mitchell, and he shucked off all the takedowns like it was nothing. And we've already seen how good he is on the feet. And when he's in there with a striker, it's going to be easy for him. So, real tough for Bryce Mitchell. I don't know what's next for him. Maybe Patricio Pitbull, that could be interesting. But let's give Bryce Mitchell a nice chill matchup. Let's give him a chill matchup, okay? And for Gene Silva, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight like an Arnold Allen or something like that. I know Aljo's been calling for Arnold Allen, but I think that could also be a good fight, Aljo versus Allen. But because this is such a big matchup, because so many eyes were on it, I think that maybe you could just give Gene Silva like a Yair Rodriguez, a Diego Lopes. Honestly, at this point, just fast track him. Because submitting Bryce Mitchell, dropping Bryce Mitchell, continuing to rack up these highlights, he is probably the most valuable fighter in this division when it comes to just pure entertainment in the cage. And I think it's clear that he's going to be able to get to the top. You may as well just rush him. Let's get to Dominick Reyes versus Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov got flatlined in the first round by a step-back left hand from Dominick Reyes. You know what? Dominick Reyes proved me wrong. I still think Nikita Krylov is like a Yuri Prohaska type of fighter where he's like the dark horse Yuri, where he's really slept on, but he's very powerful, wild. Obviously doesn't have the same chin as Yuri, that's for sure. But I expected him to win this fight. Dominick Reyes, I said that he was too simple. He's got 1-2s and a 1-2 and a 1-2. He's a little bit too simple. And yeah, we're all happy that he got those couple of wins against Anthony Smith, but it's Anthony Smith. And then there's the Jacoby one, right? And that was great. But Nikita's just dangerous, man. And I think those wild, unorthodox fighters are the ones that are going to give Reyes some fits. But you know what? Dominick Reyes, the light heavyweight, did a step back, pull back, counter left like Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling. I know that was a right hand, but we don't really see these slick counter shots at light heavyweight. So that was about as impressive as it could get. It wasn't only a good KO, but it was like a clean, lighter man skill type of KO that Dominick Reyes had. By the way, has anyone else noticed this? Did Dominick Reyes, why is he looks a little bit fat. I don't know why, but I don't remember Dominick Reyes being this tubby going into fights. I noticed that when he weighed in and when he was walking out, he just looks a little tubby these days. Maybe he wants to carry a little bit of extra weight, but then again, if he was leaner back in the day at 205, that means that he probably had a bigger weight cut. It means he's holding less mass if he's weighing in at 205, but fatter. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like he's getting a little bit tubby. Might need to get Reyes on that Real Food Cookbook, but either way, really good win for Dominick Reyes. And as he said, he's not back, he's better, dude. And it's true. That wasn't just Dominick Reyes throwing 1-2s. That was Dominick Reyes step back counter left hand. Perfect sleeping out cold. A dangerous Yuri Prohaska type of wild man fighter. And that's 3 wins in a row for Reyes. He had the 3 KO losses in a row to Jan, Yuri, and Span. Now 3 KO wins in a row, and he's arguably 1 fight away from a title fight again. Life is good, man. Not only did Volk get the belt back, but Dominick Reyes is on a 3-fight win streak. 3-fight KO streak, dude. I've been saying I want to see Yuri versus Olberg. I guess that means Reyes versus Rakic could be a good fight, right? Reyes versus Rakic could be interesting. Let's see that. And Krylov, it's tough for him, but that's a 2-year layoff for Nikita Krylov, right? So It is what it is. He always was a little wild. He's always open to those kind of punches. So, there was always a chance Reyes was going to chin him. As we get on to Sean the Martian Woodson versus Dan Ige. I picked Dan Ige to knock out Sean Woodson, and he did just that. A little bit of an early stoppage, right? Wasn't it a little bit of an early stoppage? Ige hurt Woodson in the third round, and I said that it's almost impossible to hit Sean Woodson. It's almost impossible to take him down. It doesn't seem like that should be the case because Woodson is built like a toothpick. Okay? So he's got this toothpick build where it just seems like you can shuck him over with a flick of a finger. But somehow, some way, these like athletic, strong, stocky featherweights just can't take him down. And then even on the feet, he's just awkward to hit because he has such a ridiculously long reach. And he was winning. I actually thought that he won the first round against Ige. He was piecing him up with the jab, and Ige obviously was looking for the big shot. And I started to get worried because, when you pick Ige, you are relying on him to land a big KO blow because that Woodson's really difficult to hit. And Ige is one of these shorter fighters that he doesn't have the ability to fight long range. He's not like Volk, who can, sting you on the outside and pull back and kick you and sting you on the outside and pull back, right? Ige has to sort of slip his head off the center line, get in close, land a body shot, and land one upstairs. And it seemed like he was whiffing a lot, but then in the third round, he finds the shot, hurts Sean Woodson, rocks him badly, and then just starts teeing off on Sean Woodson on the ground a little bit. Ref steps in. It definitely was a bit of an early stoppage, but Dan Ige gets it done. I said that Ige is good enough to land the shot. Woodson's good. He's been underrated for quite some time, but when he's not facing someone that's just another lanklet like him with no chin like he did in his last fight. I forget the guy's name, the guy from Mexico, another lanklet, where the guy's just like, he's got his chin on a silver platter and Woodson can just throw straight punches in front of him. Dan Ige is also a tricky customer. Dan Ige has a good chin. He's good at dipping his head off the center line. He has that sort of Mike Tyson level of head movement a little bit in MMA for a 15-ranked fighter. I'm not saying he's got Mike Tyson head movement identically, but Ige's a tricky customer. He's not the easiest guy to piece up. Credit to Lopes and credit to Volk for beating Lopes because Lopes pieced him up, but either way, just got to give Volkanovski, we got to do a little drive-by pat on the back for Volkanovski, but yeah, I said Ige was good enough to be able to, in a 3-rounder, 15 minutes, land the shot, and he was able to do that, even though it was an early stoppage. He gets it done. He holds it down. And, short, stocky Dan Ige pulls off the win. Verna Jandiroba versus Yan Jiaonan. What was this? This was a decision, right? A dominant masterclass. Verna Jandiroba is just a monster. I was scared while I was watching this. This reminded me of Khabib versus Michael Johnson, where Verna Jandiroba was yelling to Yan Jiaonan, "You have to give up. You have to give up." I was shivering in my boots. I was terrified. It was a ridiculously scary fight. And let's get on to the next one. Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. This was a little bit of a boring fight. Listen. It was entertaining in some of the grappling exchanges. It absolutely was. And on the feet, Chase Hooper was doing his thing. But let me just say this. It's clear there are moments where Chase Hooper will try to counter. And when Chase Hooper counters in the pocket, he sort of just freezes up and stands there. And I just know that if that picture's in front of like better lightweights that are in their prime, that are fast, they're going to knock him out. Chase Hooper looked like his defense needs some work in this fight because there were so many moments where Chase Hooper like starts getting a little bit scrappy in the pocket with Jim Miller, and then he just seems to freeze up. Like he's there for like 3 seconds with his eyes closed after he throws his final punch. And so that's not a great sign. But I expected Chase Hooper to brutally finish Jim Miller on the ground. And there were a couple of close submission attempts, right? And he did win the ground exchanges. He did really well, and he did beat up Jim Miller on the ground in the first round. And it was a pretty dominant decision for sure. It was like, again, first round, he landed some good strikes on Jim Miller. But I think for a guy that's being compared to a young Oliveira, where Oliveira had a lot of setbacks early on in his career, similar to Chase Hooper, had a couple of tough losses early on in his career, got KO'd a couple times. Now you see Chase Hooper just destroying people, and he's, severing people's limbs, right? You expect him to go in there with a guy like Jim Miller, who's really at the end of his career, Still crafty. Jim Miller's still crafty. But, Chase Hooper should be levels above that. He should get the finish. He didn't get the finish. And I think, you got to go out there and finish an old man Jim Miller if you're ready for the rankings, in my opinion. Okay? That's just what I think. But then again, Tony Ferguson didn't get finished by Paddy Pimblett, and here Pimblett is in the rankings about to get a title fight. But, hey, you know what? Chase Hooper is actually very self-aware because he didn't call out like he didn't call out like a Benoit or a Joel Alvarez. Who did he call out? He called out Tom Nolan, dude. He's calling out like people with 3 UFC fights. So he said he wants to fight some of these young guns. I respect that. I think that's great. And I think that it's good for him. Don't rush it. He's still very young because even though it seems like Chase Hooper's been around for a long time, he's only 25. Like, this guy is not in his prime yet, and he won't be in his prime for another few years. So he still has a lot of potential. I think that not finishing Jim Miller goes to show that he's not ready for the rankings just yet. But either way, good win for Chase Hooper. And, Julian Erosa just demolished Darren Elkins. There's not a whole lot to talk about that. Darren Elkins looks so unbelievably old. There was a time where Darren Elkins had 6 wins in a row back in the day. I remember when Darren Elkins went on that crazy win streak. It was a 6-fight win streak in 2017 or 18. And he went in there against a guy named Alexander Volkanovski, who, again, Darren Elkins was a savage back then. And Volkanovski actually proved a lot of people wrong by beating him. That was a pretty good win for Volk back in the day. Either way, I know that's a little bit cringe, but either way, guys, Michal Oleksiejczuk versus Cedric Dumas. I picked Michal Oleksiejczuk to win this fight by KO. He gets it done by KO. Cedric Dumas just isn't that good on the feet. Like, he's improved a little bit. His jab has looked better, but Michal Oleksiejczuk is one of the densest UFC fighters in the history of the sport. He's a density maxer. You look at him, he's literally built like a dense, they say a brick shithouse. He's built like a dense block, right? Where you think, okay, this guy's not lean. He kind of looks a little bit tubby. But then again, this is the thing about density maxers. They don't actually have a lot of visible fat. That's the thing. If you look at Azamat Murzakanov, he looks like a little bit of a tubby guy in this division, but there is no fat, really. There's just a different level of density to Michal Oleksiejczuk, dude. And his hands, dude, his freaking head, he's just got dense bones. He's one of these Polish guys with just dense bones. And he gets it done, dude. Easy KO in the first round against Cedric Dumas. Heavy hands, Michal Oleksiejczuk, bricks in his hands. Super durable. He's always going to beat the level that is Cedric Dumas. He's always going to beat that level. Michal Oleksiejczuk is one of these guys that's always outside of the top 15, but never outside of the top 25, So I'm happy that Michal Oleksiejczuk got it done. Really good win. Sudameri, I picked him to win this fight. He got it done. Marco Tulio, dude, this impressed me. All right. I was the pump the brakes guy in this situation. I think that I had my hardcore hat on breaking down this fight. I picked Tresean Gore to win this one with the wrestling. And I was really wrong. To be fair, Tresean Gore landed a couple of big shots on the feet, but man, dude, Marco Tulio not only pieced up Tresean Gore, but he pieced him up with a sweet pea special, spinning back kicks, and he would throw them over and over and over again, and lighter man speed, and doing it in the middleweight division. Like, this was a really impressive performance. I expected him to gas out after the first round. He threw a lot of output. This guy's at middleweight. He's big, and he's throwing the output of like a Yair Rodriguez when Yair was fighting Max. Sweet pea special, dude. Just tagging Tresean Gore up with the jab, eventually dropping him, rocked him with the head kick, and then dropped him again. Ref steps in. Tresean Gore took a lot of damage in this fight. Really impressive. He's a great addition to the middleweight division. Middleweight, I said it's the 3rd best division in the UFC. I think welterweight is a little bit better. I think that lightweight is a little bit better. But, man, middleweight, we are still getting more excellent, talented up-and-comers. And Marco Tulio is legit. Very good. Good cardio, good power, athletic, not just, a boxer. And then Nora Cannoli versus Haley Cohen. I did break down this fight on the boxing channel. Again, this was the one where we spent about 30 minutes on this. If you guys want, you can check that out on the boxing channel. So, but let me just be honest about this. This fight fucking sucked. All right? And how many times have we seen, like, the opening fight of the night is a WMMA fight, and it's absolutely dog shit, and the fans are booing. Okay? I know that this ended in a submission. Okay, whatever. It was still boring as fuck. And then after that, you actually see a war immediately with Marco Tulio and Tresean Gore. Like, how can you even take this shit serious, man? This fucking sucked. I can't stand watching this shit. But Yan Xiaonan versus Virna Jandiroba was terrifying. Whoa. Real hardcore fight right here. Anyway. Yeah, man. This was an interesting card. It wasn't the most entertaining card. Again, I think that the Gene Silva-Bryce Mitchell fight, that was a showcase for Gene Silva, but I was kind of pulling for Bryce. And Dominick Reyes, that was an amazing KO. I got to give it to him. But, Ige Woodson was a little bit slow, let's be honest. Yair Rodriguez versus Pitbull was a little bit slow. A little slower than we thought. I thought it was going to be more similar to the Emmett fight where Yair would open up a little bit more. And he got the finish, but again, it was an early stoppage similar to the Ige fight. So a little bit anticlimactic. Chandler versus Pimblett. It was good. The main event was good. It was a good card. It was a good card. It wasn't the best card, but it was a good card. Volkanovski is the champ again. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time.